Good morning, I'm Chris Jansing. The outrage over the abduction of more than 300 girls in Nigeria is blowing up after the leader of the terror group released a disturbing 57-minute video saying Allah gave him permission to sell the abducted girls, some just 9 years old, for as little as $12. We're also learning about how one girl escaped from the abductor's truck 3 weeks ago. She told the Associated Press, quote, "We ran and ran so fast. This is how I saved myself. I had no time to be scared. I was just running." Here's the White House press secretary, who said that the president is being continually briefed on the situation.
But this is an outrage and a tragedy, and we are doing what we can to assist the Nigerian government to support its efforts to find and free the young women who were abducted.
I want to bring in our journalist, Chicago Sun-Times Washington Bureau Chief Lynn Sweet, MSNBC contributor, and Washington Post columnist E.J. Dionne. Good to see both of you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Lynn, in addition to escalating social media campaigns, which include Hillary Clinton and Malala Yousafzai, and some protests that we have seen, how much pressure is there for the U.S. to do something here?
Well, it's growing because social media, of course, has its biggest impact in places where it could work best, and that's the United States. You know, ironically, I'm sitting in a place just a few blocks from the Nigerian embassy in Washington, D.C., and I think that's where the pressure can really come from, because the Nigerian diplomats here know what the world is doing, know that there's condemnation that's only going to get louder, and they know they have a big economic meeting in their country next week that is going to keep this focus on this horrible kidnapping.
So, EJ, as far as we know, the State Department is already providing some counterterrorism assistance to Nigeria, focusing on intelligence and information sharing. The Department of Defense says a small number of FBI agents in the U.S. Embassy in Nigeria are sharing advice they have on criminal investigation of this scale. How much traction do you see this getting?
I think it gets quite a bit. First of all, apropos that video you showed, I think the invocation of religion to justify or rationalize acts of barbarism is one of the great crimes against religion. And I think if ever there were an issue where we might get large chunks of the world together to say, we don't care about the politics of this, we don't care about any of that, all of us, any of us who confronted people taking our kids away, our girls away, and then saying they're justified by God to sell them. If we can't as a world unite and try to do something about this, I don't know if there's any issue that unites us. Now, Americans are very tired of foreign intervention. We're kind of weary. No one yet is calling for American troops, although there's been some discussion of using special forces. I think this has to be as multinational as you can get, because this is just such a horror.
I want to bring in Congresswoman Karen Bass, who is the ranking member of the House Subcommittee on Africa. Congresswoman, good morning.
Good morning.
What can and should the U.S. do?
Well, I think we should employ all of our forces in this regard. You know, I know that we are assisting, as was described a few minutes ago. You should know that both in the House and the Senate, we're working on resolutions. I know that the Undersecretary is over in Africa right now looking to see how we can assist them, especially with intelligence. I think that's a big issue. You know, one of the other problems, too, is that if they have moved them out of Nigeria into the areas that they're talking about, it's very hard in the forest to find anyone. But this, just as your guests have said, is really an opportunity for the whole world to come together and put an end to somebody who's really a psychopath. Boko Haram needs to be eliminated.
That, of course, is the militant group that is behind this kidnapping, and its leaders, some of the things that he has said. He's described killing humans to slaughtering animals. He's talked about believing that Allah is telling him to sell these women into slavery. Let me ask you to put this in a bigger picture. I mean, I think, as we've said, if the world can't unite behind helping girls who have been kidnapped and are going to be sold into slavery, there's nothing that we can do. But how do you put this in the overall war on terror?
Well, I think that it's real critical because there are several African countries destabilized over the last few years, and Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda's, imitators are active there. And the tragedy is that Nigeria is a booming economy. It has the largest economy and the largest population on the continent, and as you mentioned, is getting ready to host an international economic forum. And so I think that it is absolutely an imperative that we look at what's going on in northern Nigeria as well as a few other countries where you have Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda imitators or Al-Qaeda offshoots operating, and we have to bring this to an end.
Here in New York, there was a big protest on Saturday at Union Square, and we have right now in Washington, D.C. people are starting to gather a small group to protest this not far from where you are, Congresswoman. Do these kinds of things matter? Do they help?
They're absolutely critical. With all that is going on in the world today, if it really hadn't have been for the protest and the social media, this would have gotten lost in the headlines. I mean, after all, these girls were kidnapped several weeks ago. So I think the protest, the social media, all of this is absolutely critical.